Welcome to Trail Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Shimmons. Thanks for coming back to the Global Ultra Trail Show. This week, George Knight. Remember the name. Top Aussie runner at the GPT100. Second to Caleb Olson, and he ran with him for a good chunk of that race. He is a talent. So George has joined me for a chat. We talk about his history in the outdoors, how he got into ultra trail, and why he toed the line at the GPT100 Miler. Just finished wrapping up with George. I really enjoyed the conversation. Before we get into that, check out our sponsors. You see them along the top of the screen. XMiles. It's a global nutrition store. Get all your gels and all that type of stuff. GOREWEAR. Really good kit. I run over Mountains 30 for a big discount. It's a global discount code. Also Tantrums packs. They're amazing. Trail Talk 15 for 15% off. Yeah, check them out. There are affiliate links in the description or in the bio if you're on the gram. Check them out because that helps us put on Trail Talk podcast. Also, check out our weekly live show on Instagram, which also goes out on all the other podcast players. But without further delay, let's go and roll the interview with George. George Knight, welcome to Trail Talk. Great to have you join the podcast. Just, what are we, 6 days after the start of the GPT 100 Miler, which you had a fantastic result at. Congratulations on your second place. Second behind one of the best ultra trail runners in the world. How do you feel?
Well, thanks for having me, Aaron. I feel like this week has disappeared, but okay, it's 22 hours last week. We'd be starting just kind of 24 hours out on trail and some for a fair bit longer, and it just goes in that clock. But happy to be getting back into the normal routine.
And how are the legs and body and mind feeling after an epic race, and probably your hardest race to date, maybe, and like in terms of stats, in terms of technicality?
Yeah, definitely the hardest race I've done, and the body's feeling like it's the hardest race I've done. It's just the fog. That the body's fine. I'm feeling like I run every day. Yeah, it's just a fog. I've compared it to when you're reading a book and you kind of get to the end chapters and you just think, oh, what happened in those first chapters? I know how I'm here, but I can't recall those first few chapters. Just everything's a bit of a blur, but kind of writing that, enjoying the book, should I say.
The GPT, part of the World Trail Majors, attracted some great talent, but it was also the Australian Ultra Running Championship or something along those lines. So at 21, you're now also like an Australian champion ultra trail runner. That's pretty epic, right?
Yeah, I knew about it, and I think the most exciting part about that championship was it was attracting the best long distance ultra runners in the country. So there's a list of 15 odd Australian names who could even take Caleb on his bad day. Obviously that didn't happen, but it was a stacked field, and yeah, it just kind of popped it somehow. And I found, to be honest, I found coming second next to Caleb more motivating than an Australian champ, because yeah, that's the best in the world, and standing a step down from him is pretty special. But then to have
Yeah.
that Australian again podium and stand on top next to two others from Australia who are the best in Australia it's pretty special too.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. Let's take a step back because I think, like, for the audience, before GPT weekend, I didn't know who you are. I saw, you pop up in some of the running videos before the race. So you'd been out on course and in the Grampians and doing some of the runs with other runners that were already there, including Caleb. But I think for the audience, could you sort of introduce yourself and let us know how long you've been running, and then we'll maybe get into your sort of background in ultra trail and athletic history when in your younger years. And normally I'm not saying that to somebody that's 21, so like how far do we want to go back here? But the mic is over to you.
Yeah, well, I think we've actually got pretty similar backgrounds in this sport. So I was a hiker and kind of just had limited time and wanted to do more hiking. So the obvious answer is do it quicker. And there's only so fast that you can walk. So the Nevids players start running, and I was in the Blue Mountains and enjoyed that. And yeah, kind of stuck with it since. So specifically for the GPT, actually, it was uh, when it opened back in 22. I wanted to hike it, but being north of Sydney and trying to organise that with a group of friends and not having a car was a bit of a logistical nightmare. So it, the obvious answer was to try and run the thing.
And then what about your sport and history? Like, were you doing sports as a kid competitively? What were your interests there? Like, were you? I know that whenever I was a teenager, I was more interested in climbing trees and playing football. What were you doing as a kid, sport wise?
The typical, I guess, typical Australian kid. So I was playing football, soccer, and cricket in the summer for most of my life. Football definitely trained more for it, and that's where kind of the running and fitness came in. Uh, but yeah, it's just those, and then hiking was just a personal passion, and doing these little missions with a group of friends on the side. It's just something fun to do in our school holidays and other free time.
Ricky Wynn, who's the co-host on Trail Talk, he has a background as a pro footballer in Ireland, and he knew from then that one of his strengths was that he ended up being the guy that ran around the pitch loads. So he got the ball lots and was able to do lots with it. Like whenever you were playing football as a kid, did you know I'm a good runner or I'm quick or I don't get as tired as quickly as the others?
I did actually, yeah. So I was centre midfield and wasn't the greatest on the ball and distributing the ball, but I knew I could be a pest up and down and around the field. So yeah, I was quite. That's what I enjoyed, and I did train to have that endurance so that I could go to full 90 minutes when teammates were being subbed off and the other team were getting a bit fatigued. And yeah, I was a bit of a wind up merchant, so kind of prided myself in that fitness at the end of the match.
I'm glad to hear that. It's all starting to make a bit more sense now. Then, in terms of, now you also work in the outdoor space. So you're like an outdoors person, is kind of what I would term it. So, how does that impact on your training now that you're doing ultra trail?
Yeah, so I definitely, when I started realizing that I can train and work in the outdoors, it just sounds like the dream. And yeah, it's given me so much in terms of time on feet, something as simple as that, but also just knowing how to move in the bush. But as I've put more time into that, and at the same time putting more time into running, it's like they're starting to clash. So I might have in the lead up to GPT, I've had 2 weeks where one week was rafting the whole week and another week was climbing, and I'm looking at 40K weeks in the lead up to 100 miles. And it's, oh, this isn't enough. But once you kind of, it's more a gratitude thing where I'm lucky to be out here doing these things, but then I also want to be running.
Yeah, but I think that outdoor work, it's hard to call it that, is great for longevity as well. So, like, but with doing some weeks with less Ks in the feet, Ks in the legs, but then you're spending a week rafting or a week climbing, it's good for like the overall strength, which is good then for kind of your long term fitness and durability.
Yeah, I guess I'd agree. It's climbing, for example, it kind of freaks me out because it's that fast twitch muscle fibers. So I'm thinking, oh, if I have to do this crux move, like be a hamstring gone. So I was definitely just taking it as easy as I could doing the easiest climbs in trail runners nonetheless. So kind of thought I could wear the trail runners and do a bit of scrambling, which was quite appropriate for GPT.
Yeah, also mega fun as well. So, what was the like? Did you have mentors or people in the Australian scene that helped you or sparked the interest in trail running or ultra trail? Like, how did you find out that these things existed?
Yeah, so as a kid, there was the Great North Walk 100 mile ultra from Taralba, just south of Newcastle, to Tonga, just on the Hawkesbury River, north of Sydney. And I remember we were camping there one night, and the race came through, and it was like right at night, a bunch of marquees popped up, and there's a bit of carnage. And then I was like, oh, that's weird. Went to bed and got up, and they were gone. And so trail running was more of a kind of fever dream. Like, did this actually happen? Is this actually a thing? Yeah, it kind of, I guess, a number of years later, I was doing outdoor leadership down in Cozzy at the same time the UTMB Cozzy race was on. So volunteered and was like, oh, this is a cool community. I want to be involved with this. And yeah, it's kind of all gone from there.
And what year was that when you were like volunteering at Cosy?
That was the second year of Cozzy, so it would have been 2023.
Okay. And then in terms of ITRA, your first race is in September of 24, less than a year after that. Like, is that accurate? Was that your first ultra was September 24, the Great North Walk?
No, so I wanted to do a race at Cozzy, but with this course I was doing, I was pretty much volunteering in the morning, going to the classroom, volunteering in the afternoon, and couldn't see my way onto the start line of one of them. But that kind of snowy mountains area was I fell in love with, and it just so happens there was one in February of 2024, so that was my first PK, and yeah, not many ultras in Australia ITRA has scored, so I had three before that first ITRA race.
And how did they go?
The first one, I think I was seventh overall and won my age category, and kind of found it a bit too easy. Yeah, the next two or the next one was so. I just wanted to race again, and then I got a win in my third one, and kind of used that to qualify for GPT in 2024. So did that race one weekend and won, and then
Were those
wanted to
three
back it up.
races 50Ks?
They were 50Ks, yeah.
Yeah. You weren't able to go to the well in a 50K, sure, they're over before you even start to hurt.
Yeah. I could have gone quicker, but as I said, it was always hiking was my thing. So I thought I'd naturally be better at the longer distances where they're slower.
Yeah. So to only be doing it, let's round it up to a year, and then you towed the line for the GPT in 2024. So last year, the super hot year, and on ITRA it has you down as finishing third. Obviously, it was stopped with the weather that year, so it's pretty big, steep jump to go from 3Ks to even wanting to run the GPT Miler.
Yes, that's why they've got the qualifying criteria, rightfully so. To elaborate on that third, it was really 31st. It just so happens that I was third of the people who got stopped at that aid station. So it looks good, I'm thankful, but yeah, the score is something like 500, and rightfully so.
Okay. And how was that race going for you up until it was stopped? Like, how were you feeling about racing in the Grampians?
I was really enjoying being there, but I felt dreadful. I'd been in hospital with an infection a week prior and hadn't really run a great deal with an injury and then that infection. So kind of went for a shakeout the night before and was like, oh, I feel all right. And then the heat comes and yeah, there's definitely was an infection kind of hanging around the body still. But I was too stubborn and had too big of an ego to the DNF when I probably should have. But yeah, I was kind of relieved when they made that decision for me.
Before we get into this year's race and talk about that blow by blow and hear all the juicy details, what does, like, over the past couple of years, what does training look like for you? Do you work with a coach? Do you have what's known as, like, what people would consider like a classic training plan? Are you doing, ticking the boxes for intensity and hill reps and long runs, and are you doing all that classic training? And do you have a coach?
No, no coach and very little training plan. I've got a spreadsheet with what I'd want to do and then a spreadsheet with what I actually do, and rarely it matches up. So I kind of, with uni and work, I'm just heading out when I can. And yeah, some weeks I want to get a bit of elevation, but it's a lovely little lap outside my house. Most of the time it's just doing that and being happy with that. And then if I get time, it's do something else, but very, very unstructured.
But I know there's unstructured but still ticking the boxes, so to speak. Like somebody can run by heart rate and tick the box of, yeah, did my hill reps, did my strides, did my long run. And then there's somebody that can just go out and run by feel. And some days they run hard, and some days they run easy, and some days they run up hills. And at the end of the day, they both are ticking the boxes, but they're just doing it in very different ways. Are you running fast and running slow and doing all that? Are you ticking those boxes?
Yeah, I guess now that you've broken it down, I would somewhat be ticking those boxes. But again, it's just based on feel. Like I've gone out, I'm feeling good, gonna push it a bit more. And other days it's just run slow and try and be out there. So I guess time is a thing, but yeah, I don't really follow many metrics.
And what does time look like? How many hours a week are you running?
It's not a great deal. Like in uni time with the outdoor leadership, it's you're kind of outside a lot. So whether I include that in training for argument's sake, I won't. But
No,
that
don't.
takes up a lot of time, and then that takes up a lot of time. Then you got all the other uni and work stuff. So I'm probably looking only 7 to 10 hours a week of running, and then a bit more with gym work and sometimes jump in the pool or ride my bike. So yeah,
So
not
you
a
are
great
doing
deal. And
strength work as well.
yeah, so I guess my overarching goal for GPT was to be a better athlete. So I wouldn't say cross training because I ride a bike everywhere, but I did try and get a bit of muscle onto me. Probably didn't show,
I didn't see
but
it.
I do.
All right. And then what about, like, the plan going into GPT? What was the mindset? You had the opportunity in the weeks leading up to it I mean, you do run with some top class runners as well, and you were down around the Grand Prix with some of those guys doing runs. What did you think your potential was there, and what were the goals, or what was the mindset even going into that race?
Yeah, so I did the two other ultras in the Grampians, so Peaks and Trails at the start of August and Wonderland 50K at the end of August. And I just wanted to be out there. I didn't really care how those would go, but they went well, and it just gave me a sort of confidence to be able to move on the terrain. So pretty much after Wonderland, more or less my training goal was ticked. I felt like I was strong and could run on this terrain or move on the terrain. So yeah, that's kind of 2 months out. I already felt happy with my training. Um, And then, yeah, got the opportunity to head out 3 weeks earlier, 2.5 weeks before the race. And yeah, I just wanted time on feet and to continue to enjoy the area, and got exactly that. So managed a 200K week the first week I was there, and then kind of I was running with Morgan and by myself. And then yeah, Caleb and all the other elites arrived, and yeah, there was just so many opportunities to go out running, and I didn't really care enough for a taper. So if anyone asked us, uh, yeah, I guess it worked out.
How did you like? Let's get into the race because I think lots of people will want to hear about that. But you started off the race, and I believe you ran 50 or 60 k's with Caleb. We see the great footage that the media team have put out with you guys running together. And I did hear that you were passing on a fair bit of tips and local knowledge as well to Caleb during the race. Let's talk about that, like the first 30, 40 Ks. Like, break this down. Tell us what the running was like, what you guys were talking about, and just how did it feel? Spare no detail here. Come on, give us the juice.
To jump back to the Thursday, a week prior to the race, Caleb and Ricardo had arrived, and Colin had organised us to do a training run at that guard to difficult 20K section, and I got dropped. I was struggling big time. Um, and yeah, Caleb, I got out on a few more runs with them, didn't get dropped. I might have just been fatigued that day. And Caleb was talking about, like, is there laid pack? Said, nah, not for this race. It's spread out as soon as you get on that flat rock, um, and then the second climb is more or less decided. And it sounded to me that he wanted a laid pack, and I've led my past 4 races start to finish, so I'm quite comfortable in the lead. So we're kind of on that start line, and yeah, get off, and I'm next to him and I'm feeling good. So yeah, we'll do a little, not a lead pack, but a lead couple, which yeah lasted 50K and was uh, unforgettable 50K. Like yeah, we were just cruising along, getting lost, and it's kind of problem solving together. And I'd marked that first section of 0 to go on. Like, oh, there's a marker. There's going to be a tree here. We got a tight turn, and I'm leading. Still, you kind of the trail sometimes is pretty blind, so it's like, oh, we're going left quickly here, and yeah, it just kind of flowed together and was yeah super fun.
And what was Caleb saying during those times, or was he just hanging on to your coattails?
I was chatting a lot of rubbish, and most of the time he was talking back, and yeah, you don't want to be super lame and just talk about how much of an idol he is, but I was talking about, Western states and training methods and a lot of other rubbish. And there were points where he went silent, and I was like, I get the memo. Shut up, George. Just let let the elites do elite things. But yeah, I think he enjoyed my company. I certainly enjoyed his. So it made for a fun 50K.
So leaving Gar, which was 15 Ks into the race, and then you got this next sort of 20K section to Mount Difficult Road. Good bit of climbing in that. How was that section?
It's I've done the section a few times, and it's my least favorite on course. And then the weather forecast looks like it was going to heat up in that section, which I was there. This section has no color, and I was dreading it, but I was kind of talking to Caleb and said, let's just try and get off this thing as quick as possible before that heat comes. And yeah, I think it was the most enjoyable time I've done that section, and we did manage to get off before it felt really hot and had quite a nice breeze the whole time. So yeah, strategy worked for that tough got to difficult 20K.
Yeah, it was starting to heat up whenever I got up that the first bit of the climb when it flattens out. It was hot up there then. Were you making use of the ice at the aid stations, which is quite unique to GPT? Like most other races, you wouldn't think they have ice, but there's ice available at all these aid stations.
Yeah, I picked up ice at Gar. It's still relatively cold, but I knew it's 20k and however long that could take, and the sun's here in its head, so I was like, I'm just gonna take ice there. And then it kind of got into that flow with my parents' crew that I'm always taking ice. And then Caleb and I decided to stop at that aid station or water station. And apparently we were only two of the next top 15 or so. Everyone else ran past. So yeah, we were trying to be smart about keeping cool and hydrated.
So nobody else that you heard of in the front runners stopped at Gar?
No, sorry, not Gar. So we both stopped at Gar and had just, usual changeover. I picked up ice, and then in that Gar to difficult section there was that water station, and we
Yes,
both
yeah, yeah.
stopped there when apparently no one else did. They were quite thankful, the aid station volunteers, but I think we were more thankful for them.
Yeah, yeah, cool. And then what was this coming down into Hall's Gap, the first kind of major aid station where you'll see crew or some runners like me had a drop bag there. What was this section like, and were you still bending off Caleb's ear?
Yeah. So I didn't take water at difficult. I did like the quick squeeze and I was like, yeah, I got about a litre. And I just wanted to get difficult, just seemed chaotic. It was, we'd been chased in by the media people and then it was just going off there and I just wanted to get out, like definitely in that flow state. And then you're getting on top of Wartook before you do that descent into Hall's Gap, and I've realised I don't have enough water. So I see Colin and said, "Oh, is there another water?" And there isn't, and I knew that, but I thought I'd just ask. So I've kind of just been moaning to Caleb this whole way down into Hall's Gap that, um, oh, I need some water. Not asking him. I knew I shouldn't ask him, but I was like, "There's gonna be a creek. There's gonna be a stream. I'll fill up there." So I made it quite easy at like every stream. I was like, "Oh, this could be it," and then it was. So yeah, I think I might have annoyed him in that section by my yapping about water, but it was pretty fun.
And did you go into this race with like a nutrition plan? Were you thinking about grabbing from the aid stations because there was always tons of gels from that sponsor Pure, or were you carrying your own stuff? And also, like maybe feed into that. Are you training in that same sort of way? Like, are you doing the training the gut sort of stuff in preparation for GPT?
No, I'm not training the gut, so I guess I am. Oftentimes I eat dinner and then head straight out the door for a run. So in some ways I think that's gonna be training the gut. But I had a lot of my own gels and then kinda quite enjoy the pure gels. So got my parents to pick up one or two to chuck in that bag they were giving me. Well, the plan was every aid station. It kinda didn't work. In shorter races, I've got good with my parents that pick up the bottles, pick up the gels, and keep going. But sure enough, in this race, I'd say I left Hall's Gap with about 15 gels, which was far too many because I just hadn't eaten them and was feeling heavy. So yeah, I had a plan, but it went out the window. Come come 50k in.
And why do you think it went out the window? And what did you do about it?
I think it went out the window at that difficult to Hall's Gap when I ran out of water because I won't have a gel if I don't have water. And I did that whole section without a gel. So I think the nutrition slowly started to dwindle from a high carb approach to a very, very low carb approach on that section. Yeah, like I think the effects of what was probably a minor dehydration and compounded by an underfueling was felt come rosea section. But yeah, I expected something like that to happen, and people had told me about how good the noodles and ginger beer were, so it's just change the approach.
Yeah, I don't think anyone trains with noodles in Bundaberg, but we all were taking it.
Yeah, wonder drug.
Yeah. So you're leaving Hall's Gap and you've now split with Caleb. He's moved off. Was that through the transition through the aid station, or was it just like a natural gap that was starting to appear in the running? Like, were you feeling that you couldn't keep up anymore, or you feeling that I got to do my own thing? What was the mindset?
No, I think we both commented on how conservative it felt. So he might have had more to give, but we were moving well together into Hall's Gap, and then my parents did put in that magic gear we picked up, and he'd left and gone over the road, and kind of looked back at me, and I still hadn't left. Yeah, that's where the gap formed, and yeah, as soon as that happened, I had a mini bonk where that extra weight plus the 15 or so gels I was now carrying for some reason really weighed me down, and less fatigue bonk. I never thought I overcooked myself in that first 50. As I said, it felt pretty conservative despite being very, very quick.
But like
But
that
I think it's
next
just
that next
yeah,
10K section to Rosea it felt like we were going up through a canyon. Like
yeah,
the sun, for me, the sun was coming out and there was no wind. You were sheltered from the wind. So I certainly had like not a bad spell there, but I didn't feel great. I had some food. It was getting warmer. We're also, for hours into this thing at that point. So fatigue is starting to set in. Like, what was your mindset for this next section?
yeah. It went. It was, as I say, a little bonk. It is kind of most of that I think had to do with the minor dehydration before, and then picking up that extra weight. So it was like, no, I'm not fatigued. I haven't overcooked it. It's just I am genuinely carrying more weight, and it's hotter in Hall's Gap, and yeah, just drink and eat, and you'll be fine. So was more or less fine from that point on, but was struggling with the gels. But yeah, that was a very minor bonk.
Take us through then this next sort of section through the Borough Huts and then on to Mount Williams Car Park. Like, what time of day were you running through this section, which is for the audience, that's up to like 87K?
Yeah, right. So after the pinnacle, I kind of saw Caleb from Hall's Gate up to the pinnacle, like in the distance, and I was having that little bong, so I thought I'm not going to be able to close in. And then coming into Rosier Car Park, I saw his crew, so Lucy and Morgan, and apparently the time wasn't all that much. So I thought, okay, I could potentially start running with him again if he's not wanting to put like a massive gap on me, which was something I was thinking in that first 50K. Like he could just launch if he wanted to and do the winning maneuver right now. But luckily he didn't, and we got that chance to run together. But then yeah, coming up Rosea, that dehydration and the struggling with the foods came out in terms of vomit. So I had a bit of a slow section, then took the reset at Borough Huts, and I drank too much ginger beer and ate a lot of noodles. And then, yeah,
And
kind of,
then going out of Borough Huts, you have this big 1,200 meter climb up onto, up high, you're up over 1,000 meters at this point, and then you're up at this point, kind of traversing along the top of the mountain for 20Ks. It's previously been burnt out. I think you were probably doing it in daylight. Like, at what point were you turning on the head torch?
yeah, so I did that moving fine from Borough Huts. Kind of that reset really helped. And yeah, it didn't turn on the head torch until I got over the plateau. So there's Banksia Hill as you start to come off the plateau, and that's when I turned on the head torch. So Yeah, it was kind of moving, coming close to that 100K within 13 hours or so. So 9 o'clock at night. So it was, yeah, pretty pleased with how I was moving. And yeah, got into Jimmy, kind of knew what was happening.
And for the audience again, we had several seasons during one race. So, it started off fairly cool. It got a little bit hot, but what we had forecast for the evening time was, I don't know if this is a quote, but there was something talked about like Arctic winds and a southerly wind. And coming from Northern Hemisphere, when I hear there's a southerly wind, I go, happy days, it's warm. But we're upside down here. So a southerly wind in Australia is cold, so not good. And we were apparently getting strong southerly winds with gusts, cold temperatures. I think Colin or Joe, maybe it was Joe had mentioned, -9 wind chill. It certainly felt that way to me. Like, where were you in the course when the weather started to come in, and how did that feel? Like, did you stop and change gear, get your extra layers on?
Yeah, so the medics at Mount William car park told me to put a thermal on as I got onto the plateau, but I still had ice on my chest, ice on my neck. So it was kind of coming up that Mount William Road and you could see the system just sitting on top of the plateau. But it was still hot for me. So kind of go down into Boundary Gap, pop up those stairs on the other side. And yeah, literally that final step, you kind of got a bit of a blast. So it's kind of bunker back down, put the thermal on, and head back out. And it wasn't too bad for me, which I feel somewhat guilty saying because I've heard what others experienced on the plateau. It was, yeah, quite nice of me. It just blew the hair back and kept me nice and cool. And the thermal did an amazing job. And then
Yeah,
it
I
hit.
think
I got off.
I was a full 20k then behind you because you were coming off the plateau. I was going up the plateau. And so I was going up as the storm was coming in. And yeah, maybe I was in actually the worst place because I I got the start of it. I don't know, like it was dark, it was windy, it was cold, it was wet. So whenever I got to Mount Williams car park, it was, and there was others in that aid station too, but it was more the kind of the feeling was, oh no, we have to go back out into this. Not, I wasn't feeling this obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I had all my thermals, I was good to go, but there was people going like, what's the next section? Oh, it's another 20 Ks, more of the same. Right. Okay. All right. So it worked out
Yeah,
okay for you, I think.
it did.
Back over to you. Take us on, as you were saying.
Yeah, so as you were saying, it sounded like a lot of people got blasted on that section, and I'm very impressed by everyone on course who, even if they finish at that section, just to brave it somewhat is wow. Like it was pretty. It wasn't great on the lower parts, but when I was seeing the videos and heard the stories, it's people have done a good job to even get there, and the event organizers to not have serious issues in that weather was pretty impressive. But for me, I was off the plateau when the worst of it hit, and it's more or less just running in cloud and rain on the lower hills of GOREWEAR. Yeah, it's difficult traversing, and then got to Griffin and was really starting to run into some problems. Got cold on that section to Cassidy's. So yeah, left Cassidy's with two thermals, two rain jackets, thermal pants, rain pants. So was properly maximizing the mandatory gear in some. So did experience it cold, but I had learned from, let's say, people's experience at UTMB. I think layering was quite the highlight from that event.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's not jump
that was a highlight.
ahead too far because I think people need and want to hear the juicy details of each section going through this. So
Yeah.
at what point were you coming out of the night? Where were you on the course?
Coming out of the night would have been up abrupt. It was the sun was peeking over the horizon. If I didn't have any time goal, but I knew if I was somewhere high on sunrise, I'll be happy. And yeah, it was kind of up at one of the best peaks on course, one of the final peaks, and yeah, the sun was peeking out. So yeah, head torch off from the bottom of Mountain Brots to the finish.
Right. And at what point did you take off or reduce the layering system, or did they stay on for a long time?
Yeah, so that whole section of Cassidy's Gap to Bangor, I had the whole layering system on, and it ended up being quite a clear morning. So, and I felt I was being chased by third Steve Miller, and kind of seen his head torch. So I was like, I'm gonna be kicking it up a gear. The body's gonna be a bit warmer. So threw off my rain pants and the second rain jacket at that aid station and just went and yeah, kind of finished. Still quite heavily layered, but it was needed and perfect temperature to cross the line in what I was wearing.
How was the energy in the last third of the race? Were you able to still push it when you needed to, or were you starting to hurt? Like, were you getting the pains and aches that a lot of other people were having? Like, one thing I heard from a lot of people was my feet are sore. Like, my feet are still kind of sore. Not, there's trail running and then there's GOREWEAR running, and we had to run a lot on hard surfaces, gnarly surfaces as well. Descents with varying size steps. So it was hard on the body. There was plenty of impact. Were you hurting?
No, I wasn't really. I kind of knew what the course was and knew how to get it done, but the mind was going and the coldness was getting to me, in especially that Griffin to Cassidy section. Like, got a decent story about it, but basically did that whole section more or less asleep or in that semi-conscious state. So that was the only thing that was struggling. The body was moving as well as it can 150k into a pretty tough race.
How did you manage to sleepwalk, sleep run this section, and what did you do about it?
I honestly don't know what happened in that section. Like, I've done it a few times, I knew it well, and came into Griffin saying, I know what to do to my parents. I know what to do. I've done this a number of times for people listening. You go up out of Griffin, you traverse on top, you go down, and this is all single track, and then you hit a fire trail, and you hit the road, which is the aid station. And I'd got cold and laid up just after the climb, and was just feeling so out of it. And it was like my mantra for this race was, this is a race you can do well at by just putting one foot in front of the other. And it's a race where it's enjoyable for me, at least, to put one foot in front of the other. So I kind of fell back on that. And then all of a sudden I hit the fire trail, and it just didn't make sense to me because the downhills were somewhat hurting by this stage. And I was like, I would have known if I'd done a downhill, and I didn't remember whatsoever. So I'm on this fire trail thinking, I don't know where on earth I am. But a fire trail is good because if I were to press the SOS button, I want it so that I could just sit down, press it, and not have to move anymore. I was like, I'm on this fire trail. I don't know where it is, but it's good. I can press the SOS zone. I kind of just kept moving until I could work out where on earth I was. And sure enough, I see the aid station, and it just didn't make any sense to me. Got into that aid station and said, what position am I in now? And parents were like, you're still in second. I was like, oh, wow. It felt like I've just done this section entirely asleep. I'm very surprised I haven't been passed. No, uh, yeah, so got into the, so I left Griffin with my parents, bless them, they say 5K, and my mind goes to the, a park run. So I'm thinking third place is, 20 to 25 minutes behind me. Not, I'm out of it. I'm not
That would
thinking
be
that.
a good effort.
Yeah, yeah. That's just where my mind instantly goes. Oh, this isn't a massive gap I've got. And then do that whole section cold and get into Griffin, and I'm convinced I've been past and I might be in fifth or even worse. That fall, I knew I'd have pulled trail nap on the side of the trail and woken up. But they say the third was now only 4K. I mean, that can't be right. Like, it was 5K then, and I've just done a whole section stumbling around asleep. Um, so yeah, regrouped there, got warm, and went out on up Signal Peak there, and I was still out of it. But there was this nice just pocket of air halfway up Signal, and I was like, I just have to do a trail nap. So set the watch for 3 minutes, tuck myself into that pocket of air, and yeah, got some sleep and woke up and see a head torch leaving Cassidy's Gap, and that was like a triple shot espresso. From then, it was running for my life, and I was wide awake, just had to get to Dunkeld quick.
So you had like you can chase or you can be chased, and sometimes running scared is a great motive.
Yes, and a good adrenaline shot
Yeah,
to to wake me up.
I know whenever I got to the top of that last climb and there was the sign that said Dunkeld 6.7 kilometers, I know the next 2K felt like it took forever because there was stairs, there was technical kind of ground, but then you got the stairs, and before you got onto like single track where it was runnable. How was that last descent? Like, what were you thinking? Were you thinking, I'm second, what were the emotions that were going through your mind?
I was still running scared, so on the top of Abrupt, I'd seen the head torch coming off Signal, so again, in my mind, that was a 5 minute gap. It would have been 20, 30 minutes. Yeah, no maths, no trail maths made sense by that point. And you come off Abrupt, and I'm running scared. And at no point on those smaller hills and Mount Sturgeon could I see back. It's just not a mountain that really allows for that. And
Yeah,
I knew how much of a crux, albeit right at the end, Sturgeon is. So did that first climb, got to the fake knoll, and then go up the second. I was all right. It hurts, but I'm just gonna have to fly down here, and did so.
it did
And
hurt.
finally, yeah, I finally saw some people on trail coming into Dunkeld, and I was in those fields running like 420s, just
You're
running
kidding
scared
me. No
again.
way. Whenever we were at the prize giving on Sunday night, and Caleb said, I was so happy when I got off the mountain and we had these 4Ks, which it felt like you were running away from the finish to run back,
Yeah,
almost like you were running to get like a river crossing or a bridge. And it was
yeah,
so
which
flat. And I can remember I was running because I was trying to get under 33. And I was like, if I need to run for it to be possible. And I was doing, I think, close to 8 minute Ks, but I swear to God, it felt like fives.
yeah, yeah. No, I've had those. I had those 8 minute Ks that felt like fives on the trail, but this was pushing the 420, 415. And it didn't feel too bad, but it felt unsustainable as it
It's
would
got to
be.
feel nice, just the fact that you were able to open up and run. Like, that's also what Caleb was saying. Like, it was nice to open the legs up before the finish.
Yeah, yeah. So in peaks and trails, that finishes the exact same on those fields around into Dunkeld. And in peaks and trails, I've been chasing Macroon's course record, and it just felt never ending that section, and I ended up 4 minutes off, which means I didn't win $150, which was quite motivating as a uni student. So I knew I'd had experience of trying to race that last part as quick as I can, and knew it somewhat drags and it's somewhat insulting that as the crow flies you could be at Dunkeld, but instead you're going out west for what feels
Yeah,
like too many Ks that it's
it's
worth.
like 10 times longer. It feels like we're swapping 400 for 4K.
Yeah, I learned to really kind of love that section. It's oftentimes I've seen all the emus and the kangaroos, and you just got these massive eucalypts in that section, and it like in peaks and trails, it was insulting. I was like, oh, I'm at 50K on the watch, and this Matt Crone ran 50K on his Strava file. I'm like, I should be beating, I should be there and have the new course records. But in doing it since, I've just found that's like the perfect way to finish the GPT. It's just so Australian. You're in a field with emus, kangaroos, and these massive, massive eucalypts that I've never noticed. So I was pretty happy coming through there up until you turn left and you're then just in standard fields with no ukes.
Yeah, yeah. It just goes to show like the different thoughts, because I can clearly remember that I was thinking I was more in a negative space, because one of the thoughts I had was it would have been better if they got us to run like if they took the start a K further back so that this section was a K less, if it was just a case to getting 162 Ks.
Yeah.
Which just shows that I was actually starting to run out of juice mentally, that it was going more negative, and you're there going, hey, where's the emus? Where's the kangaroos?
Yeah. I felt what you felt.
So how did it feel crossing the road, coming through and running under the arch to finish second in this World Trail Majors race, second to Caleb Olson in a fast time under the previous course record as well? And also, I think you were a good 30-ish minutes ahead of third place. So, like, a massive success.
Yeah, so in years or in my visits to GOREWEAR and even in the lead up to this and last year when I was volunteering at the finish line for the people who somehow got up and completed the race from where they made an option that you could do the last day of the stage race if you were 100 miler. I said definitely not, but went and volunteered. But I made purpose in all that time of not walking up those steps. So to finally walk up those steps felt pretty good. And you kind of walk up and you're there. And in my mind, it's you walk up and then you got a bit of a thing. But it's so like short, and you go up the steps and you've crossed and there's everyone there. And it felt like I'd won, in all honesty. But when Caleb Olson said you, uh, it felt, and because I hadn't seen him for 110K and wasn't anywhere close to chasing him down. So it was all more or less my own race off the horse gate. So yeah, the immediate feeling was I've won, and then that changed the next day to I've got unfinished business here, but crossing that line felt very good.
Well, you won the Australian race. You were the top Australian, which means something considering the field was almost entirely Australian. The other best runners were all Australian.
Yeah, yeah, I
Has
did.
has that sunk in?
Yes and no. I think there's obviously it was a stacked field, but there's so many. There's people who didn't finish and people who didn't race, and I think I'm just in that stage where I'm a bit delirious post race, and all I want to do is keep racing. So yeah, there's people I'd love to share the trail with some more, and including in that race. So yeah, there's a range of national champions that Ortra seem to be putting more influence or more impact on. So yeah, I like where it's going, and think the Australian scene is just going to be so much more competitive.
Yeah, with the likes of that race, those conditions, there's always going to be high attrition. You know, there was
Yeah,
people towing the line there that were running for a time or bust, dressed for maybe not the conditions as well. And it's, you know, you have to be in the race to win the race. So you still had to manage very difficult conditions and on your own doing it as well with relatively very little experience. So I think it was a resounding success and a big indicator of like what your potential is.
I thank you.
Whenever we did the prize giving on the Sunday night, David from the Vietnam Mountain Marathon put out a really cool offer to the top runners, the top Australian runners in the GPT100. And that was that you guys come over to the Vietnam Mountain Marathon, which is the World Trail Majors event that happens before GPT earlier on in the year, end of September. And he'll bring out the best Vietnamese runners, and we can have a showdown on his course. Are you going to go? And how awesome does that sound?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, as soon as David mentioned that, and I've been looking at the race regardless. And yeah, I think Vietnam would be. He's speaking to him. He's big on stories, and apparently there's my Vietnamese counterpart over there, and we share a similar story. So not only would it be good to connect with this person, but also to then race will be. And yeah, I think overall, like, you know, everyone here kind of looks to Europe and America as being the pinnacle of trail running, but you've got Hong Kong, Vietnam, Fuji, all with these races and the massive communities. So I think kind of bridging that that connection with Asia and Southeast Asia in terms of running, we've probably got a bit more budget, and over here maybe not, but they've got so much passion and yeah, they come. A lot of people from Asia come to our races and show up in numbers and with so much passion, and I think it would just be so cool to head over there and try and bring some Australian passion to their races.
Yeah, I think the whole Vietnam event looks amazing. Like if you can go by social media and the drone shots and the finish line shots and some of the stuff from during the race, it looks like a pretty epic course. And I hope I'm going to be there too. Let's to be fair, I want to see what it's all about.
Yeah.
Jumping forward into like bucket list things that you want to do. You've raced once in Europe. We talked about this in person. What's on your bucket list like in the next 5 years, which seems mad to even say considering how short your racing history is, but like what are the things that you want to do in the next 5 years? Like what's on the bucket list that you're going to start, working towards?
I think ultimately, I know in my training there's like even even within the realms of uni and working through jobs, there's so much more I could be doing, and that obviously equates to potential. So I'd love to just see what my potential is, and then I think part of finding that potential is just having some great experiences, which is, you know, looking abroad to Europe and even Asia, just seeing how people run on all these different terrains around the world. And yeah, I think these World Trail Majors are very enticing for me as someone who's kind of been fortunate to run in one now and connect with race directors of others, participants in Caleb and Ricardo, who have done a few of them or just done the one other this year. I'd like to kind of chase those events around and be involved with the Australian side of how that's being built into what seems a pretty special series. Yeah, so
Yeah,
kind of take it as it comes.
I think with the interesting thing about the World Trail Majors as a series, but as the individual races, is it ticks that box that so many of us have, which is to experience somewhere new, see what the trails and the culture is like in another country through this shared thing that we all love, which is trail running. So whenever you look at the list of World Trail Majors events, you're just like, yep, would love to visit there, would love to visit there, would love to visit there. Yep, that's meant to be a cool race, so you could probably spend the next 10 years just going down through that list, and that could be the bucket
Yeah,
list.
yeah,
Then
exactly.
closer to now, what are you thinking of for 2026?
I'm I'm in a position where I can do online uni. So I tried to move to Germany after school and got in a visa loophole with the working holiday visa. So there's always been a part of me who's wanted to live abroad, and I think with the running and um, just the timing with uni, whether I can continue full-time study online or drop it down to part-time or drop it entirely is what I would experiment with in that first half of the year, but kind of look to go over to France or Norway or somewhere like that for the summer and then stay and work for the winter. And yeah, it kind of I do want the cultural experience, but I also want to just become a mountain kid and get all that experience. So,
Yeah, no bad thing would come from travel or experiencing mountain culture in another country. So I think you don't know what's going to come of it, but some personal growth and cool things would definitely happen. George, thanks so much for coming on Trail Talk and talking about your fantastic race and helping the audience learn a little bit about one of Australia's latest blazers on the scene. So congratulations on your result, and thanks so much for sharing your time.
well, thank you, Aaron. Thanks for having me.